Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for watching this video. My name is Vanesa McNeal, and I am a documentary filmmaker and national speaker. And I am making this video because I'm going to discuss the topic of sex trafficking. You know, of course, this is not a fun topic to talk about, but this is just another opportunity to create awareness around this issue. And I'm also grateful because in the mainstream media, there has been a ton of information and awareness about trafficking. So if you're here to learn, you've come to the right place. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. One moment. Okay, we're sharing. Okay, so this will be the presentation. So what is sex trafficking? You might have heard about it before, but sex trafficking is a modern day form of slavery where people are being bought and sold against their will for sex or sexual exchanges. I think that there is a ton of misinformation about sex trafficking, so I'm going to take a lot of time today really talking about what it's not and talking about what it really is. Because when we're thinking that it's something else, we're not looking for the right thing, and that is not what we want to happen. So it's modern day slavery. It's a lucrative business. It is the second most world's second most profitable criminal enterprise, and traffickers are making anywhere between $300,000 to $1 million per year, and that could be less or more depending on how many trafficking survivors or victims that they have under their control. So again, I mentioned the myths. This is so important because if you've ever seen Taken, the movie, if you've ever paid attention to Facebook stories and things that you see online, you might think that sex trafficking is you minding your business in the Target parking lot and someone comes up and snatches you and grabs you and they take you and they kidnap you and that's trafficking. That is what many people think, but that is not what it is. The biggest myth that people have is that people have to be kidnapped or abducted in order to be trafficked, and that is not true. That doesn't mean that people aren't kidnapped and then trafficked. That is very rare. Most of the time, sex trafficking occurs within the context of relationships, meaning that most people that are trafficked know the person that is trafficking them. And it's not this big stranger danger idea that we have created in this culture. So that is so important, because if you're looking for someone to be snatching you and grabbing kids and running off, then you're not actually looking for the real signs and the real things that are happening every single day. So that is the biggest myth. And again, you do not have to be kidnapped. Most of the time, people have a relationship with those that are trafficking them. So I want to talk about the 3 different forms of trafficking. You have family-controlled trafficking, which is exactly how it sounds. There are families in Iowa and everywhere around the country that are trafficking their family members, whether it be parents trafficking their children, siblings trafficking one another, cousins or uncles or grandparents. It does not matter. Family-controlled trafficking is here. It's happening more than we think that it is. It's difficult to detect because, again, a lot of people are thinking that you have to be kidnapped by a stranger, when again, that's not how trafficking usually works. A lot of trafficking that is family controlled is it operates like a family business. The kids in the family or whomever it be in the family is seen as this object that is sold for the pleasure and the benefit of buyers. And then you have pimp-controlled trafficking, and this is the most common form of trafficking. And this is where pimps, who are typically men, but it also can be women, are recruiting people into the sex trafficking industry, and this oftentimes is happening online. Online is now the #1 form or the forum where people are being recruited and manipulated into the business, and we'll talk about that in a few slides. But basically, pimps or traffickers are managing or controlling these victims and survivors. They basically treat them as objects that will be used for transaction and will make money from them. And then we have gang control trafficking, and that's also exactly how it sounds. There are gangs, just the way that gangs are selling weapons or drugs, they're selling people. Anytime you have a drug exchange or a weapon exchange, you are more than likely going to have a people exchange. And when I say exchange, I mean that there is a pimp or a trafficker forcing a survivor, a victim, to have sex with a buyer, and they're not consenting to that. Um, and trafficking is not this like 9 to 5 lifestyle where you go to work and you go home. Like, these victims, these survivors are working 7 days a week. They don't have holiday breaks. They don't get a break. They're sold hundreds, if not thousands of times while they're in the life. They're victimized, they're raped every day, and they're just used as pawns to make money. So this is a really nice way to kind of understand the trafficking operation from afar. So you have the buyers, and I put them at the top of the scale because buyers are controlling and they're fueling the market. So a buyer is someone who is interested in basically raping, victimizing a survivor or a victim. And let's say the buyer is interested, and I say he because buyers are mostly men. The buyer decides that he wants to have a sexual exchange. He wants to rape a 16-year-old girl. So that buyer calls a trafficker. They find a trafficker online, or maybe they know them in real life, and they say, hey, I want this 16-year-old to meet me at X location at X time, and for X amount of dollars, the trafficker will decide how much that sexual exchange will be. And then, the trafficker, the pimp, will exploit the victims, and they will get that profit, that money that is being exchanged. And the victims, anyone can be a victim. I know that we talk a lot about girls and women being victims. Literally anyone can be a victim. And so that's kind of how the industry works. Like, the buyers will decide what kind of person that they want to exploit, and the trafficker and pimp will go out and find that. And how do they lure their victims? So many ways. I want to start with the most powerful way that people are being exploited, and that's through coercion. Coercion is psychological manipulation. So whether that be blackmail, whether that be shame or fear-inducing threats, but I want to say that it doesn't start this way. It doesn't start with force, fraud, or coercion. It starts by building a relationship with someone. So if I wanted you to do things that I wanted you to do, would it make sense if I forced you right away, or frauded you right away, or coerced you right away? No. What happens is that traffickers are going out online or in person, or they're with their families, and they're finding people to manipulate. So they're building a relationship. They get the victim to trust them. They learn things about them, and then they later exploit their vulnerabilities. So with the psychological manipulation, maybe a teenager was online and they met someone and they built a relationship, and throughout the relationship there was trust, and maybe one day the trafficker was like, hey, I would really love if you would send me a picture of yourself naked. And so the victim agreed, and then the trafficker switched the flip and was like, hey, you know what, well, I have this picture of you. I will send it to your parents if you do not do what I'm asking you to do. I will send this to your principal at school. So that is blackmail. Another is document confiscation under coercion. And that's, let's say, they're immigrants that are in this country and they need their passports or they need their work authorization, and that's being taken away as a tool for someone to get them to do what they want because they need their documents. The threats are huge. They're getting to know you and they're learning about your family and, what you love. And they're saying, I know that you love your sister. Well, I will hurt her if you don't do what I tell you to do. So that's coercion. And that's one of the most powerful ways that people are luring and maintaining their victims. So you have force, of course, that's like physical force, that is torture, that is the assault that they experience, not just by the buyers, but oftentimes the traffickers are also sexually assaulting them. There's so much food and sleep deprivation as a tool to get people to do what they want. There's drug administration for some of them. And then the fraud is huge. You know, when they're building this relationship, there's false promises involved. It's, you know, I'm your friend, I will be nice to you. Or, you know, if you just do this one thing for me, I will pay your bills. Or, you know, we can get married and I love you and we can have a great relationship. That is how people manipulate, lure, and maintain control. And this is how this is powerful. And I don't think we realize how powerful these control tactics are. So again, it's exploiting vulnerabilities. It's learning about what people care about. It's learning about what their weaknesses, so to speak, are, and taking advantage of them. And trafficking thrives because there's a serious demand for it. If there was not demand, there would be no supply. And I want to talk about the statistics when it comes to who these buyers are. And this information comes from Breaking Free in Minnesota. So the average age or the most the highest percentage of you know, people that are buyers are between the ages of 30 and 50 years old. So what that means is that most of the people that are buying people for sex or sexual objectification are between the age of 30 and 50, and 67% of them are white men. 66% of them have children, and almost half of them are female children, and a little bit more than half of them are married. So what this data tells us is that these are like everyday average people. And 72% of them have college degrees, and the average income is about $141,000. So like, not only are these people that like we could be walking down the street with or in the grocery store with, these are people that have disposable income. These are educated people. Sometimes a lot of them are in positions of power also. And 81% of them are without criminal histories. And that's scary because these are not people that like are typically on law enforcement's radar. Again, because these are everyday average people that probably have more money than most people. And then 61% of them have admitted to purchasing sex before prior to getting arrested and caught. So these statistics should disturb you, but should also give us a bigger picture on who really is fueling this industry, and it's these buyers. So a lot of people are wondering, well, do buyers know that they're purchasing trafficked individuals? I don't think that's the right question. I don't know if it matters or not if they know that they're purchasing someone who's being exploited, because some people argue, well, what if they think that they're purchasing a consenting prostitute? Well, I want to challenge that notion by saying, is prostitution real? Are the people that are quote unquote prostitutes doing it because they're forced to do it? Are they doing it because it's a choiceless choice? Are they really doing that because they like woke up that morning and said, this is my dream life, this is something that I want to do? And does that prostitute, quote unquote, have a pimp? If that prostitute has a pimp or a trafficker, that is trafficking. So, you know, we could argue that there are sex workers out in the world who do not have like a third party person that is dealing with their transaction, that is controlling them. But I would say most of the people that we consider prostitutes are also being trafficked as well. So it doesn't matter if buyers know or not. Prostitution is illegal, and people should not be purchasing people for sex. That's just my opinion. So one of the unforeseen consequences of the internet and how it's exploding is that there has also been an explosion of child sexual abuse images and videos. And some, you know, the lay term for this is child pornography. And I talk about child pornography in this presentation because it completely ties into sex trafficking. Child pornography is any visual depiction of sexually explicit conduct involving a minor. So that could be photos, videos, digital or computer generated images that you can't tell the difference whether it's an actual minor or not. So child pornography is so linked to trafficking because oftentimes those same children that are trafficked are also engaged in the child pornography industry. And many of the buyers who are interested in purchasing children for sex are watching child pornography. So it really goes hand in hand, and it fuels this industry so much. And, parents are also being a part of producing those images, which I'll talk about soon. But the United States, the US, this country that we live in, is the largest producer and consumer of child pornography in the entire world. And that should really upset us. And there has been such a rise in child pornography content between 2003 and 2018, it has skyrocketed. And who are the victims? 63% of them are children under the age of 8. 78% of them are between 8 and 12 years old. 80% of the children involved in child pornography are girls, and about almost 20% of them are boys. So again, boys can be involved in this industry, and they're absolutely sought after by buyers. Here are some quick statistics. I just want to really point out that 25% of child pornography content is produced by a neighbor or a family friend. 18% of it is produced by a parent or guardian. 18% of it is from online enticement. So again, let's move away from this notion that trafficking happens mostly by strangers, that you have to be kidnapped and abducted. Again, that is not what the evidence is showing us. And then if you look down at the bottom, in 2004, there are 450,000 child sex abuse images online or files. In 2018, there were 45 million files. So we have a serious problem in this country. And again, 25% of them are by people that they know. And with the popularity of live streaming, peer-to-peer networks, the dark web, private chat rooms, like it just breeds this industry. So before I end in a couple minutes, I just wanted to show you this. This is an example of an ad that I found in the area that I live in. This is basically a buyer talking about his interest in finding someone for sex. He says he's generous. He's a businessman. He hosts in his hotel evening. So he's basically saying, come to my hotel room for the sexual exchange. And again, this is on the internet. Like, this is happening everywhere. So what do you want to look for? You want to look for the absence of normal. You want to look for evidence that people are being controlled by family members, by friends, by people that they know online. Is someone not able to move around in the world freely? And that doesn't mean that they're trapped in a basement, but does it just feel like this person is being controlled in their movement of life? Does this person work in the same place that they sleep? That is huge. If you're friends with someone in school and they're saying that they've been up all night working and they are working from their house, well, what are you doing? Are people coming to your house and having sexual exchanges with you, or what does that look like? Do they have someone else managing their personal information, like their ID, their driver's license, their any information that's important to them? Do they have little or no possessions? Or have you seen someone at school that maybe one week they look like they're in lack, they don't have a lot, and then the next week they're coming in like designer clothes and like they are getting out of a really nice car? Well, where does that money come from? Because a lot of people that are trafficked, they're given things by their traffickers, whether it be money, shoes, phones, clothes. That happens. So pay attention to that. Are they talking about owing a lot of money and that they're having to pay it off? Do they not understand maybe where they are, what day of the week it is? They have like a lost sense of time, because oftentimes these people that are trafficked are working all day, all night, and they don't even know like where they're at as far as time or location or space. So those are things to look at. That is not an exhaustive list. Just look for the absence of normal. Does it look like people just are in a space that they don't want to be in? Or, you know, and you're having your conversations in your friend groups and your friends are talking about, you know, they met someone online or they invited them to a party, and now, you know, this friend of yours is spending all their time with this group of people that maybe they weren't before. There's lots of challenges in this industry. Survivors, we think that they're like banging on our door, waiting for us to get them help, and that's usually not how it happens. This is psychological manipulation. Sometimes people don't even know they're being trafficked because they've formed such a bond and they've been so manipulated by traffickers. Survivors don't always see themselves as survivors or victims of this crime. There's such fear and distrust for law enforcement. People that are immigrants, their fear of deportation, so they don't even talk about it. A lot of times I've had so many survivors talk about they've been purchased by law enforcement, so they don't want to talk to law enforcement. And, you know, again, this is an underground, mostly online industry. So what can you do? You can raise awareness, understand the link between the mainstream porn industry and child exploitation. If you see something, say something. You can support law enforcement and anti-pornography industries. What not to do, you don't want to intervene on your own accord in active scenarios. So let's say you're out in public, you're at a gas station, and you're seeing someone that looks like they're soliciting themselves or someone's soliciting them. You don't want to walk up to that person and be like, hey, I'm here to help you. Are you a survivor of trafficking? No, do not do that. It is not safe. Call 911, call the hotline. I'll give you those numbers in a minute. And also, if you have a personal relationship that with someone maybe at your school that you know is being trafficked, do not make promises you can't keep. Don't say I can keep you safe forever. You don't know that. So just follow up with the appropriate people. Here is the hotline number. I'll add it again at the end, but believe survivors when they come forward. Education is so important because, again, most people don't know what sex trafficking actually is. You want to hold men accountable because, again, most men are buyers, but we as a collective, every single person is responsible for mitigating this crime and making the world a safer place. So when you see something, say something. Don't wonder about it, think about it, let 5 days go on before you call. If you see something, say something and do something about it. And if you need some more motivation for why you should do something when you think you see something, is that life expectancy for survivors is only 7 years once they start their sex trafficking life. So be the change by doing something. And again, in doubt, call 911. Here's the national hotline number. Call 911 for emergencies. So I just want to thank you again for watching. Thanks for being a part of making the world a safer place. If you want to learn more about sex trafficking, I have a documentary that I produce called Grid Shock. You can purchase that film at VanesaMcNeal.com. It's about an hour long, and it's a documentary on how the sex trafficking demand is in Iowa. So thanks again.